Hi everyone, welcome. I see some people joining in already.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome. Amazing. I'm gonna let a couple minutes for everyone to join in here today. But while we wait for everyone, if you want to just go ahead on the chat, just tell us your name and where you're coming from. I'm Stefania. I'm the Keela's customer care team lead, and I'm coming from Vancouver, Canada. And Amanda, so Amanda's going to be doing our demo today. Amanda is our senior customer support specialist, and she's joining us from Montreal, Canada.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
I see some people in here. We have Patricia from Vancouver, Jonathan from Ottawa, Suzanne from Atlanta, Lindsay from Vancouver as well, Sarah from Victoria. So nice to also see some familiar faces with customers that Amanda and myself have communicated with through our support queue. So we're going to get started because we do have a limited time today of 30 minutes. So Amanda today, as I mentioned, Amanda is our senior customer support specialist. So Amanda is going to be walking us over today our pipelines demo. And I do have Elise, who's also our customer support specialist, and myself, and we're going to be crippling on the chat if you have any questions. But also keep in mind that we're going to have about 5 to 10 minutes at the end for any questions that you might have. So without further ado, Amanda, go for it.
Thanks, Stefania. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today while we walk you through the amazing capabilities of our new pipelines tool. So on the agenda today, as you can see, hopefully everyone can see my shared screen. We will talk about what pipelines is in general. We'll talk about the concept of pipelines, where we got the idea for the tool, and how it can help you. So we'll talk about some typical use cases. We'll also demo the product, of course. We'll jump into Keela and walk through an example that we have set up in Keela so that you can see it in real time. We'll talk about today's offer, and then we'll save, like Stefania said, we'll save a couple minutes at the end to answer some questions. And I think Stefania mentioned she'll be in the chat throughout this entire time, throughout this presentation, answering your questions in real time as well, but we'll save a few for the end too. So let's jump in and talk about what is pipelines. So the idea of pipelines is relatively new to the nonprofit space, but it certainly is an up and coming and trending topic. So you may have even heard some influencers in the space talking about this recently. And if you haven't heard of pipelines yet, please don't panic. The point of today's session is to introduce you to the concept of pipelines, show you Keela's new pipelines tool, and how it can be applied to the work that you're already doing with your donors and your constituents. While some of you may have not heard of pipelines, a concept in this room that might be more familiar is moves management. So moves management has been around in this sector for a long time. It consists of moving your major donors through a series of stages that help you build a relationship with them and make strategic calls to action when the time is right. For example, you first have to identify your donors, qualify them as your major donors, nurture them so that they trust your organization and feel connected to your cause, make a call to action, then steward them after they make their contribution. So when Keela was exploring building out perfect moves management tools, we did a ton of research. So part of this research was, of course, looking at nonprofit workflows and needs, but we also wanted to take inspiration from CRMs in the for-profit world. So they typically use a tool called pipelines, where they nurture prospective customers through a series of stages to try to encourage them to purchase their product. So these sales pipelines are often coupled with automation and span across multiple customer segments. So we quickly realized the resemblance here. Not only does this type of workflow resemble moves management, but this also gives us an opportunity to allow organizations like you to extend this concept of moves management across multiple segments of donors so that all of your contacts get the same type of attention that your major donors are getting, but without all of that manual work. So this is where Keela's pipelines tool kind of came to life, where the idea came to life. So at the moment, Keela is the only nonprofit CRM on the market with a pipelines tool. So that's pretty exciting. Ultimately, pipelines definition here is an organizational tool. So whether you're moving donors through a typical donor cycle like we're seeing here, or another idea, recruiting volunteers to join your organization. Pipelines can be a tool to to visually track your contacts moving through a series of stages or passing certain milestones, leaving you with this high level view of where your people are getting stuck or accelerating in the actions that you want them to take. So this not only gives you more visibility, but also supports your team in making informed decisions on which actions need to be taken at what time, where friction may exist within your journeys, and where more personal touch points might be needed. So it will also just save you some time because you no longer need to be clicking through all of your contacts all the time to check on their statuses and trying to figure out where they belong in your journeys. So let's take a quick look at Keela's pipelines tool. So this is just a quick snapshot of the example that we're going to be running through today when we do jump into Keela. So what we're looking at here are the different stages of a major donor engagement pipeline that we've set up. So a contact would likely start in the first stage on the very left, which is the identification stage, where we're going to look into a contact to see if they meet the criteria to qualify as a major donor. Then we'll move them through each subsequent stage as they pass certain milestones or as your reach out efforts come to fruition. The goal is for them to eventually land in the final stage, which is stewardship. So contacts can be moved manually from one stage to the next just by you clicking and dragging and dropping them stage by stage so that you have control over every step of this process. Or you can start to play around with and take advantage of the built-in automation feature, which allows you to build simple workflows that work in the background of this tool that will catch those actions of your contacts and help you manage these workflows with some really cool automated actions. So we'll touch more on that exciting part of this feature once we actually jump into Keela. Some other really cool use cases that we've been building and playing around with, but we've also seen some other organizations taking advantage of with this tool. Um, Recurring donor campaigns, lapsed donor re-engagement, volunteer recruitment, event registration, first time donor to second gift is a really cool example. Campaign specific reach out efforts, so many more examples. Um, yeah, there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of creativity we can come up with in this space. So this might sound like a lot. We're throwing out a lot of ideas here, and there's a lot of functionality to play with in a tool like pipelines. But if you think about it, like you're already working with these segments in Keela and with your donors. Most of them already exist within your database. So now it's time to think about the journeys that these contacts can need to go through to get them to take action. So, but you can always just start with one idea. So if your goal this year is to re-engage your lapsed donors, then that's a great place to start. And that can be your first pipeline. So let's jump into Keela and take a look at the tool itself. So I just need to get out of here, not the Q&A yet, but we're just jumping into Keela. So looking at the tool itself, it will pop up around here. And we'll jump into the major donor engagement pipeline since that's the one we've been chatting about so far. So when I click into the tool, this is going to look really familiar. The layout and the design of the tool is nothing new. It's going to feel familiar. It's going to feel like Keela. You can navigate through the tool using the tabs along the top, again, like most tools in Keela. So you'll get some of the internal information here, what you've named the pipeline, your internal description and status. You'll also get some updates on your current pipeline. So this represents the total number of contacts that are currently in your pipeline stages and the completion rate. So this is actually calculated by how many of these contacts are currently in your final stage of the pipeline. So you might want to keep that into consideration when you're designing the stages of your pipeline. This is a really typical way to think of pipeline stages, is that you want your contacts to end up at the last stage, but you could also design it, a lot of them, you want them to end up out of the pipeline. And that's fine. You can design it either way. You just won't end up having this statistic, which is fine. We also have the functionality of a pipeline progress bar or a fundraising progress bar. Anybody who's using our campaigns tool will recognize this, as it's really similar to the campaign progress bar. So you can fill out a fundraising target for your pipeline. And as donations from these contacts start flowing in, it will fill up this progress bar. Okay, this will be applicable to any pipelines where you're fundraising, of course. It might not be applicable if you're onboarding volunteers or you're tracking event registrations, right? You don't have to use this tool, but it's available if it makes sense. Okay. Now we'll jump into the stages. Okay, so this is the view that we saw on that picture at first. So these are the different stages that we've come up with for the major donor engagement pipeline specifically. But if you're starting from scratch, if you're building a new pipeline, this is going to be blank when you first click into here. So you're going to come up with the stages, and then these are the contacts that we're adding into each stage or that are currently moving through your pipeline. Okay, so we'll start by adding stages. So we'll click this edit stages, and you'll be able to type in the names that you want to add for each stage. And you'll notice that there needs to be at least 3 stages, and there's a maximum of 10 stages. This is just to keep things manageable within your pipeline. There's also a really cool probability feature here, and it helps you calculate the likelihood of people moving from one stage to another, and can help you kind of prioritize your efforts. So please play around with that if it works for you. Okay. So step 1 is adding the stages. Step 2, of course, is adding contacts to your stages. You're likely going to be adding contacts to your first stage, but if you're in the middle of your cycles, you might be adding people to your subsequent stages, which is fine. You can add them kind of one by this add contacts card. Okay, this will feel familiar too. You can choose which stage they're in, and you can have a personalized ask amount for each contact that's in each stage. But most of you, I'm sure, intuitively are going to ask me right in this moment, how do I bulk add my contacts? Yes, we've thought about that. And yes, that's possible. So through your main contacts page, through your main contacts list, it is a bulk action to take. So you can filter your contacts list, select all, add to pipelines, add to a certain stage. You can also do this through your segments tool, which is great. So you can take your already created segments and add the specific ones to a stage in your pipelines. So the work that you've already been doing, you can take advantage of here. So next we're going to touch on the automation part of this tool, which is really exciting. This is where this tool really shines. I'm going to preface this by saying, if you are not familiar with working with automation, if you've never worked with automation in a CRM before, please don't worry. It can definitely be intimidating at first. But this part is not necessary to make pipelines work for you. You don't need to make it work. You don't need the automation in order for this to work. It is an added layer to this tool that you can learn along the way, one step at a time, one action at a time. But there's some really cool functionality to learn in the automation piece. So we have some really great resources on automation in our knowledge base through training videos, but also through us. Myself, Elise, Stefania, we spend a lot of time in here. We've done a lot of training. We spent a lot of time building automations. We know a lot of the functionality. So please, please, please rely on us. Reach out to us if you're curious. We're happy to help you build some of these automations, tell you what's possible, and help you conceptualize some of these things. So please rely on us, because we spend a lot of time in here. So let's talk about one example that we've kind of been touching on this whole time, is the movement between the first and second stage. So between your donors like through the identification and qualification stage. So we have Marilyn Monroe and Squidward hanging out in the identification stage because we placed them here. So they might be donors who give regularly. Maybe they've been giving monthly for a long time. We've identified them as donors who have engaged with us for a long time, and they might be major donors, but we're not sure. Or they might be really close to becoming major donors. So manually, without using the automation rules, which we'll touch on in a second, the workflow here would be, I'll click into Marilyn Monroe because we know where she exists now because we have this really nice visualization. And now we have this working list, which is really, really helpful. I'm going to click into Marilyn Monroe periodically and check out her donation history, see where she's at, and if I can qualify her as a major donor. If I can, I might tag her contact, and then I can manually drag and drop her over to qualification, drop her into qualification, okay, and move on. And then decide what my next action is once she's in qualification to see when I can then move her into cultivation. So that would be the manual work there, but at least having the visualization, knowing where Marilyn is at all times, and having a working list to work from is super, super helpful. But where automation comes into play, all of those little actions that I just took through manual work can be automated. So if I jump over to rules, what we're looking at here is a series of checkpoints and actions that represent that manual work that I just kind of went through. Okay. So when Marilyn lands in that identification stage, we can build out this, what we call kind of a workflow, like a rules workflow in this case, where when she lands in that stage, then she flows through a checkpoint and multiple action points. Okay, we've designed this. So she'll go through a checkpoint here where we're going to ask the system to check Marilyn's contact to see if she meets the criteria of a filter. So this is a familiar space for all of you. We use filters all the time in Keela. So does Marilyn's contact have a lifetime giving that's above $5,000? She's going to wait until she meets this criteria. So she's going to sit in this stage until she meets that criteria. And the day that she does pass this criteria, then she'll move down and receive these actions. The actions that we've picked for Marilyn are add a tag. So we'll add the major donor tag to her contact. We'll notify an internal user. So either your ED or maybe your major donor fundraiser, say, hey, we have a new major donor identified. And then we're going to move Marilyn from identification to qualification. And then she's going to automatically move from one stage to another. So all of those actions that we were going to do manually are now taken care of by the automation tool. Isn't that great? So all of these actions that are available in automation here are focused on internal management and operations, right? So tasks that your team need to take to move these contacts through the stages or update the contact data to help in internal contact management or segmentation. Any donor-facing actions, so outward-facing actions that you'd want to take here, like touch points with your donors, most likely emails, will need to kind of happen outside of this tool, right? This is all visualization and organization. So likely, intuitively, you're going to head to your email marketing tool and use some of this internal updating and segmentation to then communicate with these donors. Or for the lucky few of you that have our automation add-on as well. These two tools work really, really well together, seamlessly together, actually. So you can now trigger automation workflows under the automation tool that have drip campaigns, email campaigns, right? You can now trigger these email campaigns based on where your contacts are in a pipeline. So when Marilyn moves from identification into qualification, she'll get that tag, right? That will now trigger an automation workflow that will send her a series of email welcoming her to the club. Okay, so these two tools can work really, really well together, which is great. So if you are familiar with our automation add-on, they do work really well together. Really takes it to the next level. So this is just one example of an automation series that can help move your contacts through the pipeline. There are tons of other actions and checkpoints to play around with here. So please, like I keep saying, play, open them up, see what's available. But again, it's not a necessary part. So don't let it intimidate you away from the tool itself. It's something that you can learn over time, learn one action at a time. But if you are familiar with automation, then I'm sure your brain's just running with a bunch of ideas at the moment. So um, lots to play with. Last thing on this tool to look at, this will feel familiar with most Keela tools that have to do with fundraising. You'll be able to associate transactions coming from the contacts in your pipelines to the pipeline if it's applicable, if you're fundraising through this pipeline. So you'll be able to access any transactions that are associated to this pipeline through this list and any recurring donations as well. Okay. Last thing I'm going to show you while we're still in Keela, and then I will promise, is how to kind of access more information on pipelines. So when you're in your Keela account, I'm in a test account at the moment, but you'll still be able to see. So through your organization settings here, and there's the little premium tab, okay? This is access to all of our premium features, including pipelines. I think it's at the bottom here. So it tells you a little bit more about it, but it also gives you the price per month based on your current plan. So you might see general pricing elsewhere, but if you're curious how much it's going to cost for your current plan, you can come see that here. And any premium feature that you don't have at the moment, you'll be able to actually select it from the list and purchase from here. But today we are offering a bit of a discount. So if you'd like to take advantage of that discount, please email us after this demo and let us know when we can apply that discount instead of going this way. So um, I think that's it for the demo. And I think we're on to Q&A. I'll pass it back to Stefania.
Amazing. Thanks, Amanda. So Elise and I were actually able to answer some of the questions, but I did have a question from Lindsay that would be great if you show it. So when you're on the pipeline, can you click on the contact and see their profile?
Yes, let's see. We can come back over here. So from the stages, yes, so if we click into Marilyn Monroe, it will bring up her contact card that tells us a little bit more about what's happening in the pipeline itself. It'll tell us the stage and the ask amount, but there's a little view contact button there. So we can really easily access the contact card.
Amazing. Thanks, Amanda. I wanted you to be able to show that one. We have questions about how long the discount is active, and if you could please repeat how they can access the discount for this add-on. I can cover that one. So the discount that we're offering is 15% off until the end of April. And to be able to access the discount, you're going to need to email us at support@keela.com, and we're going to have to add the add-on on your behalf so that we can add the discount for you. Let me see. We do have some. Could you show us how pipeline stages display on a contact record?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump into Marilyn. So it is held in her contact profile under the admin section. So, isn't it?
No, I think it's only for automation. So I don't think you can see it on the contact profile right
Okay.
now. You will
Yeah.
be able to see it on the pipelines.
Yeah. So you got to jump into the pipelines tool to see where they're at. Yeah.
Oh, actually, Elizabeth is here. She's saying that you can see it at the top right. There's a tab at the top in there.
Oh, here. Yeah, of course.
Amazing. So you
You
can
should
see in
know
there.
that.
We
That's
knew it
okay.
was there. Thank you, Elizabeth. Elizabeth is part of our sales team, so thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Can you associate an interaction with a specific pipeline stage?
Not interactions. Right now, it's contacts will be added to the stages, and then you can associate transactions.
Amazing. And then
But I could see that being added in the future for sure. There'll be other records that we'll be adding into pipelines in the future for sure. But right now, it's just contacts and transactions.
Amazing. And then the other question that we have in here is, can you assign a contact to different pipelines? And yes, you
Yes,
can.
absolutely.
Amazing. We have a question here from Steve. Do you have a pipeline you can show or demo that is for tracking grant? And I did get back to a question in here. We might have an example. However, we are kind of tight on time today. But if you
Mhm.
send us an email to support@keela.com, we might be able to send you kind of like a little video showing you the example that we have and what you could do with it.
Exactly.
Amazing. It doesn't look like we have any questions. Does anyone have any questions? William, will this demo be available as a recording for others in my organization? Yes, we'll be sending you the link with the video after so you can send to other people from your organization. Gilbert asked, do you have a trial period? And we don't right now have a trial period for a pipelines. And then I do have Aaron in here since we just signed up. He's asking Elizabeth, but since we just signed up, are we eligible for the pipeline discount? Yes, you would be eligible for the 15% up.
Mhm.
Um, Sarah has a question in here. When additional features like including interactions eventually come on board, will they be part of this add-on, not additional cost?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We'll be enhancing this feature. And usually, when we add enhancements to a feature like this, there won't be any additional cost. And you'll be able to find out when we add fun things um, to features like this. They'll usually be coming out in this what's new notifications. Um, we usually put out a little knowledge base article and let you know what's new and if anything has changed. And we usually put out a little training video as well. So keep your eye on this what's new notifications for new features and enhancements to features that exist already too.
Amazing. Um, if we're interested in both automation and pipeline, is the discount for both or only pipelines? At this time, the discount is only available for pipelines, but you can just send us a email as well to support and we can talk about it.
Mhm.
Are there any more questions? Uh, I don't see any more questions. Does anyone have any questions in the last 3 minutes that we have? Okay, perfect. I see in here one. The rules automation that was demonstrated in the pipeline tool, is that included in the pipeline's cost or in the automation tool? That's a very good question. What you saw that Amanda showed up on the rules, it's included with pipelines.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks similar to what is offered in automation. However, there's added functionality in the automation tool. There's some different functionality offered in automation tool than just the rules for pipeline. This is more catered to the internal management of the contacts in the pipeline. So the tool itself looks really similar, but they are a little bit different. And this rules capability is included in the pipelines tool. Yes.
Amazing. That was a great question. Thanks for asking that, Jane.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions? We do have about 2 minutes left. If we have one or two quick questions sent our way. But if we don't, then we can just all get a couple minutes back to our days and we can just finish a minute earlier. It doesn't seem that we have more questions, so we can just go ahead and call it a time. Again, thank you so much, Amanda, for taking the time today to show us about a pipelines. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at support@keela.com. And if you're interested in purchasing pipelines, just let us know, or if you have any questions about what pipelines can do for you and your organization. Okay, bye everyone. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.